From Reincarnation to run-ins with the Mafia and the FBI, Steven Seagal has lived quite the explosive life both on screen and off. Before Steven Seagal became a major star on the success of macho action flicks like Marked for Death and Out for Justice, he had a bit of an inspirational life story. Born in Michigan, he moved with his parents to California, where the frail and asthmatic young Steven became obsessed with rock and roll and martial arts. He learned Aikido under the tutelage of an older man of Japanese descent, then spent some time in Japan before returning to the US to open a chain of successful dojos. His story was so ready-made for Hollywood that the movie industry had already told versions of it. Several of his biographical details bear a strong, albeit coincidental, resemblance to the Karate Kid. Even if Seagal's journey to becoming a warrior was Hollywood fodder, it wasn't necessarily the image he wanted to project. Often in interviews, he would foreground his family's roots in Brooklyn, presenting himself as a kid from the block who made good. But that particular bubble was burst in a 1990 People magazine profile in which his mother Pam clarified that his Brooklyn upbringing was limited to a handful of family visits. She also noted he was a puny kid back then. The People profile punctured Seagal's self-promoted image as a New York kid and took aim at one of his tales about his pre-Hollywood life. Seagal claimed that while living in Osaka in the 1970s with his first wife, Miyako Fujitani, he performed training and consulting work for the CIA. This bit of unverified history began circulating in 1988 during the promotion of his feature debut, Above the Law. The film's plot follows rogue CIA operatives, and Seagal claimed a certain amount of expertise in the field and even suggested that the script came from his own experiences as a company man. Fujitani couldn't speak about her husband's clandestine activities during their 10-year marriage, although she did confirm to People that there were long stretches of time when he was unavailable. She also noted that while he could have been guarding the Shah of Iran or Bishop Desmond Tutu, as he claimed, it's just as likely that he was a poor husband and absentee father. In the early 90s, Seagal hired retired intelligence officer Herbert Saunders for security detail. Then in 2003, Saunders confirmed to the New York Post that Seagal pressed him to use his CIA abilities and access to do everything from stealing files from the Drug Enforcement Agency to killing someone. As Saunders put it, I don't think he's able to sort out fantasy from fact.
There are an awful lot of people who say that that's not true.
By the early 80s, Seagal was busy with his Aikido dojos in Osaka, Los Angeles, and Taos, New Mexico. The North Hollywood location quickly became the talk of the town, and in 1986, the Los Angeles Times wrote a glowing story about Seagal, generally taking his bold claims about his mastery of Aikido and Japanese culture at face value. The paper reported that his time in Osaka proved his mettle as a martial artist and his disdain for imposter karate teachers. Seagal's dojo attracted film industry luminaries like James Mason and James Coburn, but his most significant student was someone less well known to the public at large: Hollywood super agent and future Disney president Michael Ovitz. In 1987, Ovitz arranged a martial arts demonstration for a group of Warner Brothers executives. While film studios had been sniffing around Seagal for a few years, Ovitz was the one who finally made it happen. He arranged for Seagal to star in Above the Law and helped him get story and producer credits on the film as well. Along with Ovitz, other Hollywood notables shaped Seagal's career at this early stage, including British actress and model Kelly LeBrock, who had captivated audiences in the 80s in such films as The Woman in Red and Weird Science. She and Seagal met in Tokyo, where she was shooting a fashion campaign, and their relationship gave him some status that he might not have enjoyed otherwise. The 1986 Los Angeles Times profile of Seagal even included the claim, Kelly LeBrock apparently was his reward for years of self-denial. Years of self-denial is an odd way to describe a decade of marriage to his first wife that produced 2 children, but the profile makes no mention of them. In fact, Seagal had been married twice beforehand. In 1984, he married actress Adrienne LaRussa, despite still being legally married to Miyako Fujitani. Within a year, LaRussa annulled their marriage, and by 1986, Fujitani divorced him as well. As for LeBrock, she and Seagal married in 1987, but their union ended less than amicably in 1996. Over the course of his career, Steven Seagal has done quite a bit of fight choreography. Most of the films he's choreographed are his own, but in the early 80s, he worked on the James Bond film Never Say Never Again, training Sean Connery in martial arts. Connery was already well-versed in karate. While preparing for 1967's You Only Live Twice, he was even awarded an honorary third-degree black belt. But for his 7th outing as Bond, he needed to learn a little Aikido. So Seagal taught him how to throw opponents and manipulate joints. At first, the lessons seemed to be going well, but then Connery got a little cocky, so an irritated Seagal allegedly grabbed his arm and broke the actor's wrist. While Connery was undoubtedly in pain, he reportedly kept training and didn't even realize the extent of his injury until years later.
15 years ago.
And it's still broken?
Yeah, I just found out last year.
In his heyday, Steven Seagal was the biggest martial arts star in Hollywood, but that doesn't exactly mean that he could fight in real life. He may be a seventh dan in Aikido, a martial art that relies on joint locks and the redirection of momentum, but Aikido is pretty worthless when it comes to self-defense. According to fight analyst Jack Slack, Aikido famously only works if the opponent is running straight at you. Alas, this is something most smart fighters never do, but nevertheless, Seagal claimed that he could beat anyone, anywhere, anytime. Furthermore, he made some controversial comments about Bruce Lee, Chuck Norris, and full-contact karate. This didn't sit well with Bob Wall, an actor and high-ranking black belt with plenty of tournament experience. Wall was friends with Norris, had worked with Lee, and didn't much care for Seagal's attitude. That was when Wall assembled a group of kickboxing and karate champions dubbed the Dirty Dozen. Some of them wanted to expose Seagal as a fake, while others wanted to avenge some stuntmen he'd allegedly injured. To get his attention, the Dozen appeared in various magazines, but there was ultimately never any physical showdown. When Seagal finally met Wall, the movie star reportedly apologized for what he'd said. Seagal has battled all sorts of bad guys on the silver screen, from terrorists to the Yakuza, but he's also faced some villains in real life, including the Mafia. In the 90s, the actor's partnership with producer Julius Arnaso resulted in a string of hits. Alas, their relationship soured in 2000, and things took a dark turn when the Gambino crime family got involved. One day, Seagal was reportedly escorted to a Brooklyn restaurant where he met an alleged Gambino captain named Anthony Sonny Ciccone. According to Seagal, Ciccone ordered him to start working with Naso again and demanded that Seagal fork over $150,000 for every film he made. Evidently, Seagal was so shaken that he gave the gangsters $700,000. As he left the meeting, someone supposedly told him, "If you would have said the wrong thing, they would have killed you." The scandal came to light in 2003 when the government indicted alleged crime boss Peter Gotti and 16 others for a host of crimes. In addition to Seagal's testimony, the government had recordings of several individuals, including Ciccone and Naso, discussing how they would intimidate Seagal. They even laughed about how they scared the movie star. Naso defended himself by saying Seagal had backed out of several movie deals and owed him $500,000. He was sentenced to 1 year in federal prison, though he still sued Seagal for $60 million. After Naso got out of jail, he settled with the actor for an undisclosed amount.
I still know a thing or two.
While never a critical darling, Seagal used to pull in some impressive box office numbers. These days, though, Seagal's films tend to go straight to video on demand, and he blames his decline on, of all things, the FBI. In 2002, Los Angeles Times reporter Anita Bush was investigating Seagal and Julius Naso. One morning, she found a dead fish, a rose, and a sign that read "Stop" on her windshield. She informed the FBI, who began investigating Seagal. At first, the feds thought he'd hired a detective named Anthony Pelicano to intimidate Bush. They also suspected Seagal of hiring a thug to scare Vanity Fair writer Ned Zeman with a gun. But after digging deeper, the FBI concluded that there was no evidence against Seagal. Instead, they focused on Pelicano, the private eye who illegally spied on celebrities. The FBI never charged Seagal, but they didn't exactly exonerate him either, and he believes all the notoriety from the Pelicano case significantly harmed his career. It may not surprise you to learn that Steven Seagal is fascinated with law enforcement. He even served as a cop in Jefferson Parish, Louisiana for about 20 years. In 2009, the actor took things to the next level by starring in a reality show called Steven Seagal, Lawman. In the third season of the show, Seagal moved to Arizona and teamed up with controversial Sheriff Joe Arpaio of Maricopa County. Arpaio is an infamous media hound, so when Seagal showed up with a camera in tow, the sheriff decided to put on a very memorable show. In 2011, Arpaio orchestrated a raid against Jesus Llovera, a local man suspected of cockfighting. When the cops arrived, they had more than just a warrant. There were up to 40 SWAT officers, a bomb squad, canine units, armored vehicles, and even Seagal riding on top of a tank. During the raid, parts of the suspect's house were damaged as Seagal's tank tore down the gates to Llovera's property. After arresting Llovera, Seagal and Maricopa officials discovered that Llovera owned over 100 roosters, which they decided to euthanize. Llovera even claimed that the police also killed his 11-month-old puppy.
Animal cruelty is one of my pet peeves.
Olvera started to file a lawsuit against the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office and demanded an apology letter from Seagal, but after pleading guilty to cockfighting, the lawsuit was dropped. As for the raid, it ultimately never aired on TV. As someone who's so famous for breaking bones, Steven Seagal is surprisingly gentle towards animals. He's both a vegetarian and something of an activist. In 1999, Seagal worked to force South Africa to stop exporting baby elephants to Japan and received a PETA Humanitarian Award for his efforts. 4 years later, he wrote to the government of Thailand to get them to stop torturing baby elephants. He's also attempted to shame India into treating cows better. But Seagal's favorite animals of all are of the soothsaying variety. During an interview with PETA, he claimed that while he was learning Aikido in Japan, a white dog greeted him. After a few days, the canine started barking, apparently telepathically warning him that his dojo was on fire. Seagal put the fire out and the dog disappeared, never to bark again.
Of course, I'm an animal lover, you know?
Animal lover?
Yeah.
Seagal's hands aren't just for busting up bodies, they're also for making sweet, sweet music, as he's a longtime musician who loves himself some blues. Seagal has been playing guitar since age 12, and he's the frontman of the aptly named Steven Seagal Blues Band. In 2005, he released his first album, entitled Songs from the Crystal Cave. Overall, it's a straightforward blues record, not nearly as grimy and soulful as the likes of B.B. King or Buddy Guy. Sputnik Music wasn't exactly impressed, calling it the Plan 9 from Outer Space of records in their review. We're inclined to agree with that take, as the track entitled Music barely qualifies as music. Meanwhile, Girl, It's Alright sounds like the first song that Jack Johnson threw in the trash. And then there's Jealousy, a hungry ghost song that could maybe serve as inspiration for a high school yearbook quote tune. Energy drinks boomed in the mid-2000s. With the success of Red Bull and Monster, dozens of competitors flooded the market, and they were often endorsed by celebrities. A certain action star got in on the game in 2005 with the release of Steven Seagal's Lightning Bolt, a ginseng and goji berry-powered drink available in 2 flavors, Cherry Charge and Asian Experience. Seagal released a baffling 2-minute commercial featuring himself and swimsuit models hanging out by a pool. The premise was that he was so enamored by his own beverage that he wanted to swim in it. It's hard to decide which element of this ad is more offensive. Ingredients with names like Tibetan goji and Asian cordyceps, the models being unable to fake any chemistry with Seagal, or the nondescript blues guitar score. Reviews of the drink were less than appetizing, though cans are still available through eBay if you really want to try them after all these years.
Lightning bolt. Try it today. It's electric.
Russian President Vladimir Putin has a reputation as a dictator and human rights violator, but Steven Seagal doesn't exactly see him that way. He's even been quoted as saying, "I know him well enough to know that he is one of the greatest world leaders, if not the greatest world leader alive today." The two met in 2003 at the Moscow Film Festival and quickly hit it off, probably thanks to their shared love of martial arts, as Putin is an 8th degree black belt in judo. Soon, they were dining together, visiting dojos, and promoting old Soviet exercise programs. They even visited the Russian judo team during preparation for the 2012 Olympics. In 2015, Putin asked President Barack Obama to make Seagal an honorary consul of Russia, but Obama vetoed that idea pretty quickly. Despite that, Seagal visits Russia frequently. He's even given Aikido demonstrations, visited the factory that produces Kalashnikov rifles, attended a parade on the 70th anniversary of the Nazi surrender to the Soviet Union, and played a concert for pro-Russian separatists in the Crimean Peninsula. In November 2016, Seagal officially received a Russian passport and became a citizen of the country. What's more, Putin personally signed the passport and expressed his hope that the stunt would promote a normalization of relations between the United States and Russia. But it appears that this new Russian citizen is already grinding other countries' gears, as it was announced in May 2017 that Seagal would be banned from entering Ukraine for 5 years. According to the Ukraine Security Service, the ban was implemented on the basis of Ukrainian national security, likely due to Seagal's admiration for Russia's aggressive tactics in the region. There was no word on whether his movies were banned as well, though we have to imagine he's not winning any popularity contests over there. In 2023, Steven Seagal received the Russian Order of Friendship, a civilian honor available to both citizens and non-citizens of Russia. The year prior, a holding company co-owned by Seagal earned a parcel of land outside Moscow to build a martial arts center. The area had reportedly been previously set aside for a children's hospital. Seagal's cozy relationship with Putin aside, the Order of Friendship is no empty gesture. Established by former President Boris Yeltsin in 1994, the recognition has been bestowed on dozens of political and cultural figures. Past honorees have included chess master Anatoly Karpov, orchestra conductor Riccardo Muti, and Queen Elizabeth II's cousin, Prince Michael of Kent, who gave his medal back in protest of the war in Ukraine. Canadian politician Adrian Clarkson and Norwegian politician Rune Raffleson have also both returned their orders of friendship since the start of the war.
Russia and America should be great allies, and that's the way it should be.
Steven Seagal is a man of contrasts. He's a high-profile Hollywood Buddhist and supporter of environmental causes, while simultaneously a champion of strongman regimes and corresponding paranoid reactionary politics. In 2018, Seagal took his first dip into literary waters with the release of his debut book, The Way of the Shadow Wolves: The Deep State and the Hijacking of America. The book was co-written by Arizona politician Tom Morrissey and includes a foreword by Sheriff Joe Arpaio. The story is a hodgepodge of Trump-era conspiracies surrounding the Deep State, a supposed group of unelected bureaucrats plotting against the American people from deep within the federal government. Their master plan is to smuggle Middle Eastern terrorists through the Mexican border, but standing in their way is tribal officer and shameless Seagal avatar John Nantan Goad. He's a Mohawk, or an Apache, depending on the chapter. He's also a member of the Shadow Wolves, a real-life indigenous patrol unit that works under the Department of Homeland Security. Seagal and Morrissey depict the Shadow Wolves as so morally pure and in harmony with the land that they have nearly supernatural abilities. The mysticism would be offensive if the writing wasn't so laughably bad. Curious minds can still find the novel available for purchase, but you might be better off reading one of the book's many bewildered reviews instead. Steven Seagal is willing to lend his name and image to some dicey projects, and there's perhaps no riskier example in his personal history than the cryptocurrency bonanza of the late 2010s and early 2020s. In the first quarter of 2018, Seagal went to bat for a project called Bitcoin 2 Gen, also known as B2G. He promoted the coin on his social media pages and allowed his likeness to appear on official branding without disclosing that he'd been promised $250,000 in cash and another $750,000 in B2G tokens for his endorsement. If you're an expert in white-collar crime, you'll know that this is a violation of federal anti-touting law. In 2020, the Securities and Exchange Commission came down hard on Seagal for his violations, issuing fines of $157,000 in disgorgement and another $157,000 in penalties. Seagal paid $75,000 towards that total and then fled to Russia, hoping that his status as a Russian citizen and close friendship with Putin would keep the rest of his money safe. However, in 2021, a federal judge ruled that the SEC was still owed the full penalty and could collect it through Seagal's business manager. As for B2G, founder John DeMar faced fraud charges that led to a 5-year prison sentence in January 2023. According to multiple actors that he's worked with, Steven Seagal isn't exactly the most pleasant co-star. For example, while filming 1996's Executive Decision, he allegedly shoved John Leguizamo against a wall.
Caught me off guard, knocked all the air at me. I was like, why?
Seagal also made life hard for the Saturday Night Live cast when he hosted an episode in April 1991. As Tim Meadows revealed in the book Live from New York, he didn't realize that you can't tell somebody they're stupid on Wednesday and then expect them to keep writing for you on Saturday. And according to fellow cast member Julia Sweeney, Seagal wanted to perform a sketch where he played a therapist who wants to sleep with a rape survivor. He was reportedly banned from ever hosting again.
Steven Seagal was so horrible on such a scale. It was such a huge scale of terribleness.
In 1996's The Glimmer Man, Stephen Tobolowsky played a serial killer who was supposed to be defeated by Seagal's character, but Seagal had decided that it was bad karma to keep killing people on screen. Tobolowsky explained that his character was trapped in his own private hell, and by killing the villain, Seagal would be allowing the bad guy to reincarnate as a more peaceful being. Seagal agreed, and the scene went on as scripted. Unfortunately, Seagal later ad-libbed the line, "Thank God I didn't kill that guy." Tobolowsky then had to record a few lines to make it seem like his obviously dead character had somehow survived. However, those lines ultimately didn't make the final cut. In 1997, Rinpoche Rinpoche, the supreme head of the Nyingma school of Tibetan Buddhism, announced that Steven Seagal was a reincarnated Buddhist master. Rinpoche asserted that in the 17th century, Seagal was Turton Chungdrag Dorje, a renowned translator who opened a monastery and found several powerful relics. Thanks to this supposed spiritual history, Seagal was declared a Lama, which is a venerated teacher in Tibetan Buddhism. During his inauguration, Seagal pledged to help ease suffering across the globe, and since then he's given seminars on compassion at New Age retreat centers. However, several people are skeptical of Seagal's spiritual status. Since he's been accused of sexual harassment, many have questioned his moral character. Others allege that before he was declared a Buddhist master, Seagal donated quite a bit of cash to Rinpoche's school, which might explain his conveniently glorious past life. It's all especially abnormal considering that these reincarnated teachers are generally discovered as children. In 2018, Emmy-winning actress Juliana Margulies was a guest on the Katie Couric podcast. The ladies discussed the Me Too movement, and Margulies recounted a hotel room meeting she had with Steven Seagal in the early 90s. When a casting director told her that Seagal wanted to go over a scene with her in his room, she went, under the assumption that the casting director would also attend. As she recalled, "I walked in and I sat down and I jumped right back up because there was something very uncomfortable and hard in the couch. He laughed and said, 'Oh, sorry, that must have been my gun.' He lifted up the cushion and he took out his gun. When Margulies grew nervous, Seagal explained, 'Oh, it's just for all the crazies that are out there. I have to protect myself.' Seagal also claimed to be a healer and asked to read Margulies' palms. He told her that she had weak kidneys, and shortly thereafter she managed to get out of the room, but then she realized that she hadn't received the cab fare she'd been promised, so she went back and asked for it. She got the cash, as well as the part in Out for Justice, but she also demanded never to be alone with Seagal on set.
The tough New Yorker in me just inwardly was laughing because it was so awful and hilarious.
Seagal has faced accusations of sexual misconduct throughout his career, ranging from harassment to assault to even sex trafficking. In one instance, images surfaced of the actor groping his Under Siege 2 co-star Katherine Heigl, who was only 16 at the time.
He said, "You know, Katie, I've got girlfriends your age." And I said, "Isn't that illegal?" And he said, "They don't seem to mind." And I said, "Mom!"
In 1991, actress Rayanne Malone, who was Seagal's assistant on Out for Justice, and 3 other women accused him of sexual harassment. Warner Brothers ultimately reportedly paid them $50,000 each. Other incidents have also made headlines without resulting in any legal consequences. Then in 2017, the Me Too movement cast a light on serial predators in the entertainment industry. Suddenly, decades of allegations against Seagal could no longer be overlooked. Portia de Rossi came forward with casting couch horror stories, while model Fabiola Dottis and actor Regina Simons accused Seagal of rape. The Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office investigated Dottis and Simons' claims in 2018, though no charges resulted. In total, more than a dozen women have reportedly accused Seagal of sex crimes. If you or anyone you know has been a victim of sexual assault, help is available. Visit the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network website or contact RAIN's National Helpline at 1-800-656-HOPE. That's 1-800-656-4673.